The night is quiet, yet beneath the surface of the earth, something stirs. An echo, a vibration, a faint whisper no louder than the rustling of dry leaves on stone. Imagine for a moment standing barefoot on cool ground, the soil firm beneath your feet, and then feeling not stillness, but a slow, steady pulse. As though deep below, the planet itself has a heartbeat. Some call it imagination, others call it myth. But what if those whispers are voices, remnants of something hidden, something alive in the unseen caverns of the world? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're here, I'd love for you to post your location and your local time in the comments below. It always amazes me to see how many corners of the world we connect from, all of us gathering in this strange twilight of curiosity. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Beneath our feet lies more than rock, soil, and molten fire. There are labyrinths of stone, caves stretching for miles, caverns so vast they could house cities, and tunnels that remain unexplored to this day. Most of us think of the Earth as solid, layered in predictable bands of crust, mantle, and core. But imagination, and perhaps something more, has long challenged this view. What if, instead of being entirely solid, the Earth is hollow in places, or even more radically, home to entire civilizations that live unseen beneath our everyday world? It is in this whispering darkness that tonight's journey begins. When ancient people listened to the ground, they often heard sounds that seemed otherworldly, rumblings, groans, distant thunder echoing through the stone. To them, these weren't simply geological events. They were messages. The earth was alive, and it spoke. The Greeks told stories of Hades, a realm beneath, ruled by a stern king. The Norse spoke of Svartalfheim, a subterranean land of dwarves who forged wonders in hidden halls. Native American tribes described underground spirits, some benevolent, some mischievous, all deeply tied to the living heartbeat of the land. When you think about it, caves themselves invite these stories. Step inside one, and the air grows cooler, heavier. Sounds shift, carrying in strange ways, echoing back at you with tones that feel alive. Your torchlight flickers against walls carved, not by hands, but by time itself, twisting into forms that resemble faces, creatures, or doorways. Our ancestors saw these places not as voids, but as gateways. To step underground was to leave the known world and enter a hidden one that might not follow the rules of light and surface life. But let's imagine, slowly, carefully, what if the whispers in those caves are not just echoes of our own breath, but remnants of something alive down there? Not ghosts, not gods exactly, but something in between, beings whose homes are woven into the stone and darkness. Modern explorers have reported strange things too. Deep within certain caves, they describe hearing sounds like murmuring voices when no one else was near. Some speak of glowing lights moving ahead of them, always just out of reach. In the vast Mammoth Cave system of Kentucky, in the immense networks of Mexico's cenotes, and even beneath the icy crust of Antarctica, there are stories of explorers hearing music, soft, melodic, unplaceable. Scientists often explain it away as echoes, dripping water, or shifts in rock. But the people who heard it sometimes come back shaken, convinced they brushed against something greater, something hidden. And here's where the human imagination takes a bold step. What if those whispers belong to civilizations, societies that long ago retreated from the surface, building entire worlds underground? The hollow earth theory, strange as it sounds, isn't just modern speculation. It threads through centuries of storytelling. It insists that deep beneath our feet, there are continents lit by an inner sun, rivers flowing in vast caverns, and beings who thrive away from the eyes of surface dwellers. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself descending into such a world. You begin at the surface, feeling the last traces of fresh night air. Then you step into a tunnel, The deeper you go, the fainter the familiar becomes. The sound of wind, the glow of moonlight. The air grows denser, pressing against your lungs, yet strangely clean. You pass layers of rock, some smooth, some jagged, until finally the ground widens into an opening so immense it takes your breath away. Imagine a cavern the size of a city, stalactites hanging like the teeth of some slumbering beast, and in the distance, lights, soft greenish hues, flickering like fireflies, yet too steady to be alive. Perhaps lanterns, perhaps something stranger. Would you still call the Earth lifeless then? Or would you wonder, as many before us have, if we share this planet with neighbors we have never seen? There's something deeply human about sensing a presence beneath us. Even in cities, when we build basements, subways, and tunnels, we decorate them, illuminate them, try to make them livable, but the unease remains. Subterranean spaces feel different. They press upon the mind. Psychologists say it's the lack of light, the claustrophobia. Yet myths insist it's because we're not alone down there. The whispers remind us. The earth groans during earthquakes. Volcanoes roar. Geysers burst. All these are explained by geology, yes, but long before science, they were interpreted as voices, anger, warnings, or even songs. Perhaps both explanations can live side by side. Perhaps the earth speaks in many languages, some we understand, and some we have yet to decipher. Let us wander further into the possibility. If there are hidden realms below, what might they look like? Imagine not crude caves, but vast halls, their ceilings glittering with minerals that reflect light like stars. Imagine underground rivers so wide they resemble oceans, with shores where strange fungi glow softly in colors unknown to the surface. Imagine societies that adapted to this darkness. Eyes evolved differently, skin pale or luminous. Cultures that never saw the sun, but grew around their own hidden light source. Would they know about us? Would they consider us the surface people, much like we imagine them as the inner ones? And would they ever want to meet? Or would they prefer to stay in their timeless quiet, listening as our own civilization races chaotically above them? The whispers beneath our feet grow louder when we dare to imagine. Some of them are harmless, like the gentle crack of stone cooling at night. Some are frightening, like the roar of magma forcing its way upward. But the most enduring whispers are the ones that tell us stories. Every time you hear a legend of an underground world, a hidden civilization, or voices echoing from the earth, you're hearing humanity's long conversation with the unknown. And tonight, that conversation is just beginning. For there are myths of hollow worlds that stretch across cultures and centuries. Myths that suggest perhaps those whispers are not just echoes, but greetings. And so, with the lights dimmed, with the air still, let us move forward into the next chamber of this story. A place where legend and curiosity intertwine, where civilizations are imagined beneath the crust of our world. Since the dawn of storytelling, human beings have gazed not only at the skies above, but also wondered about the darkness below. We have always been explorers of both directions. The heavens gave us constellations, gods, and promises of afterlives. But the earth beneath our feet gave us something different: mystery, fear, and sometimes even comfort. To descend into the ground was to enter another world, a place that felt separate from our own. And across cultures, this other world took on many shapes. Some called it the land of the dead. Others believed it was home to gods, monsters, or even entire civilizations. The idea that the earth was more than rock, that it was hollow, alive, and full of hidden realms, has lingered across history like a quiet heartbeat, sometimes whispered, sometimes shouted. So, let us take a slow walk through these legends, traveling from culture to culture, listening to what different peoples believed lay beneath their feet. In ancient Greece, the underworld was not simply a graveyard of spirits. It was an entire geography, mapped in myth as carefully as the surface world was mapped in stone. Hades was the lord of this realm, a stern ruler who did not torment souls but kept order among them. To the Greeks, entering the earth meant crossing rivers, the Styx, the Lethe, the Acheron, each with their own strange properties. One made you forget, another demanded payment, another carried you to judgment. But what is striking is not just that the underworld existed, but how vividly the Greeks imagined it. They believed there were palaces, gates, and even fields below. The Elysian fields, for the righteous, were described as a place of light and joy, almost as though a secret paradise was hidden beneath the soil. Meanwhile, Tartarus was a pit deeper still, reserved for monsters and divine prisoners. In this way, the Greeks planted in our imagination the idea that the Earth's interior was layered, not just empty, but structured, almost like a world within a world. Travel northward, and you meet the Norse sagas. The Vikings spoke of Yggdrasil, the great world tree, whose roots stretched deep into hidden realms. One root reached Niflheim, a frozen land of mist. Another touched Muspelheim, a world of fire. And beneath the tree dwelled creatures unlike any seen on the surface. The dwarves, for instance, were said to live in Svartalfheim, an underground kingdom of artisans. They were the smiths of legend, forging Thor's hammer and Odin's spear. They did not dwell under the earth because they were cursed. They lived there because the deep places gave them access to metals, jewels, and powers hidden from the surface world. And then there was Hell, the cold realm of the dead. To enter Hell was not to fall into fire, but to slip into a quiet, shadowy world where most souls went after death. In Norse vision, the earth itself cradled the spirits of its people, keeping them beneath the roots of the cosmic tree. Cross the ocean, and we find that many Native American tribes held similar stories of an underworld, not as a place of punishment, but as a place of origins. The Hopi people of the American Southwest tell of emerging from a subterranean world through a small hole called the Sipapu. According to their traditions, humanity lived underground in earlier worlds before climbing upward into this one. To them, the inner earth was not only real, but part of our own journey as a species. Other tribes spoke of underground spirits, sometimes called little people, who lived beneath hills and caves, guiding or tricking humans. In the cold northern forests, some tribes describe sounds of drumming and voices beneath the frozen ground, believed to be the songs of those inner spirits. Imagine standing on snow at night and hearing faint rhythms rising through the ice. What else could one think but that life was stirring below? In the East, particularly within Tibetan and Indian traditions, there is the enduring legend of Shambhala. Some described it as a hidden kingdom in the mountains, but others whispered that it might lie beneath the surface, accessible through secret passages. Shambhala was no underworld of the dead, but a radiant city where wisdom was preserved, a sanctuary for enlightened beings. Related to this is Agartha, a vast subterranean empire said to stretch beneath Asia. French and Russian explorers in the 19th century claimed to have heard rumors of it, describing kings who ruled from hidden halls beneath the Himalayas. These weren't places of shadows, but of light, civilizations untouched by time, watching quietly as the surface world changed in chaos. Even the world's first civilizations had visions of the underground. In Mesopotamian mythology, the goddess Ereshkigal ruled the land beneath, Irkalla, where the dead dwelled. But like the Greek Hades, it wasn't simple darkness. It had gates, judges, and laws. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes journeys into caverns, encounters with scorpion men who guarded passages into the earth. The Sumerians didn't see the underground as emptiness. They saw it as organized, ruled, alive. In Mayan myth, there was Xibalba, the place of fear. But unlike mere shadows, Xibalba was a realm with ball courts, rivers, and trials. Heroes descended into it, faced challenges, and sometimes returned. The Popol Vuh tells us that even gods walked these hidden corridors. To the Maya, the earth was not solid. It was layered with doorways leading into vast and dangerous worlds. Pause for a moment and notice the pattern. Whether Greek, Norse, Hopi, Tibetan, Sumerian, or Mayan, the story repeats. Beneath us is not empty silence, but worlds. Some are places of the dead, some are homes to gods, some are origins, some are paradises. But almost never is the underground simply nothing. Humanity has always filled the silence below with meaning. Why? Perhaps because caves, tunnels, and caverns are real, tangible mysteries. We see mountains and rivers, but we can also stumble upon a cave mouth that swallows us into darkness. It invites stories, and when the earth rumbles, when sounds echo from beneath, it strengthens the belief that something alive is down there. Later thinkers began weaving these myths into a broader theory. If so many cultures imagined realms inside the earth, maybe they weren't just stories. Maybe they were fragments of memory, clues left behind by ancestors who once encountered, or perhaps even lived in, subterranean civilizations. By the 17th and 18th centuries, European scholars speculated openly about a hollow earth. Some suggested multiple concentric shells, each with its own environment. Others imagined openings at the poles leading into hidden continents. These were not mere fantasies. They were attempts to explain myth with science, or at least with speculation dressed as science. But what makes these legends powerful is not whether they are true in a literal sense. What matters is the shared imagination, the idea that the earth itself holds secrets, that we are not alone on its surface, but share it with hidden worlds below. Imagine yourself now sitting quietly in the dark. No phone, no noise, just stillness. You listen and perhaps you hear the faint hum of the ground, an echo, or maybe your own heartbeat reflecting back. Could it be the same sound our ancestors heard? The sound that inspired them to fill the earth with kingdoms, gods, and secret peoples. These myths are not random. They are humanity's way of answering the silence. Where the eye sees darkness, the mind sees possibility. And so, the legends endure. So far, we have walked through whispers of Hades, roots of Yggdrasil, songs beneath the ice, radiant Shambhala, and the gates of Xibalba. Each culture gave the underground its own shape, its own rulers, its own lessons. And though the details differ, the essence is the same. Beneath us lies more than stone. As we move forward, we'll explore one of the most persistent legends of all. That there are actual entrances to these hidden realms, not just myths, but physical openings into the hollow earth. And according to some, the most mysterious of these are found at the very edges of our world, the polar regions. If myths whisper of worlds hidden beneath the ground, then where are the doors? Where are the entrances into those vast and secret realms? Across centuries, storytellers, explorers, and dreamers have pointed to one of the most desolate and forbidding regions on Earth, the poles. The North Pole and the South Pole are not places most of us will ever see with our own eyes. They are shrouded in ice, darkness, and silence. And perhaps that's why, for generations, they have been imagined as gateways. If the Earth hides its deepest secrets, why not tuck them away at the very edges of the map? So tonight, let us travel north and south, not with our bodies, but with our imaginations. Let us walk through the strange and persistent theories of polar openings and what they might reveal about the dream of a hollow Earth. Picture the world as it was 500 years ago. Maps of the time often left blank spaces near the poles, marked with warnings. Here be monsters. Nobody knew what lay there. Sailors told tales of endless ice, whirlpools that swallowed ships, or lands that appeared suddenly out of the mist. And when no one can prove or disprove a story, it takes on a life of its own. The polar regions became the perfect canvas for speculation. They were inaccessible, harsh, and strange. If there were entrances into a hidden world, surely they would be found in places no ordinary traveler could reach. Some of the earliest European maps of the Arctic showed a curious feature, a great whirlpool at the very center of the North Pole, pulling all waters inward. Around it were drawn 4 islands, separated by rivers flowing toward the middle. In the 16th century, a geographer named Gerardus Mercator included this in his famous map of the world. According to reports, he based it on Norse legends of a magnetic mountain at the pole, surrounded by currents leading into the Earth itself. This was not a myth of simple ice and snow. It was the idea that the pole itself was a kind of drain, a hole leading into a vast interior. Sailors spoke of compasses behaving strangely near the Arctic, needles swinging wildly as though caught by forces beneath the surface. Was it magnetism? Or was it, as some suggested, a sign of hidden lands within? The Antarctic, even more forbidding than the Arctic, has also been tied to hollow Earth lore. For centuries it was called Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land. Entire continents were drawn on maps before anyone had set foot there. It was believed that something immense and mysterious balanced the Earth from below. When explorers finally reached the icy continent, they found not jungles or kingdoms, but a frozen desert. Yet even then, whispers persisted. Beneath the ice, some said, there were vast caverns warmed by geothermal heat. Some went further. Those caverns might connect to deeper realms, illuminated by an inner sun. And the entrances, hidden beneath the polar ice, remained sealed from prying eyes. By the 18th and 19th centuries, as the scientific revolution met the age of exploration, the hollow Earth theory gained strange new life. Writers like Edmund Halley, the same Halley who charted the famous comet, suggested that Earth might consist of concentric shells. He believed the aurora borealis, those shimmering northern lights, might be caused by light escaping from within, shining through the openings at the poles. Later, in the 19th century, John Cleves Symmes Jr., an American Army officer, became the most famous champion of polar openings. He insisted that both the Arctic and Antarctic contained vast holes leading into inner worlds. Symmes campaigned tirelessly, writing pamphlets and calling for expeditions. He even proposed that governments send explorers to locate these openings. Though many mocked him, his ideas spread widely, capturing the public imagination. To this day, these supposed holes are sometimes called Symmes holes. There were even claims, though unproven, that certain explorers had stumbled upon evidence of these openings. Stories circulated that ships drifting into the high north sometimes found warmer waters, as if currents carried heat from hidden sources. Others claimed to have seen strange fogs, unexplainable by surface weather, or flocks of birds flying northward, as though heading to lands unknown. In Antarctica, explorers spoke of mountain ranges hidden behind veils of ice, places that seemed out of place in such a barren environment. Some claimed to have seen ice-free valleys warmed by geothermal heat. Were these simply natural phenomena, or hints of something more? One of the strangest pieces of supposed evidence for hollow Earth openings comes from the auroras themselves. To those who believed in a hollow world, the aurora borealis and its southern twin, the aurora australis, were not caused by solar particles colliding with the atmosphere. Instead, they were thought to be streams of light escaping from the inner sun through the polar holes. Imagine the sky glowing green, purple, and red, not because of distant cosmic winds, but because of a hidden fire within the Earth itself, bleeding through the cracks at the edges of the world. Even into the 20th century, these ideas refused to die. The invention of airplanes and later satellites gave us new views of the Earth, but the poles remained mysterious, often covered in storms and ice. Some conspiracy theorists claimed that photographs of the poles were altered, hiding the openings. Others said governments kept knowledge of inner civilizations secret. The fascination was not just with holes in the ground, but with what might lie beyond them. Were there advanced societies, older than ours, shielded from the chaos of the surface? Were they watching us? Or perhaps were they waiting for us to stumble upon their doors? But beyond the literal, the idea of polar openings carries deep symbolic weight. The poles are the edges of our maps, the limits of human reach. They represent the unknown, the places we cannot easily see or touch. To imagine openings, there is to admit that the world still holds mysteries, that not everything has been charted, measured, or explained. And perhaps that is the true power of these legends. Whether real or not, The idea of polar gateways keeps alive the sense that adventure is possible, that secrets remain, that the Earth beneath us is not yet done surprising us. Picture yourself standing on an endless plain of snow at the very top of the world. The air is thin, the wind howls, the compass needle spins uselessly. Ahead, the ice slopes downward, not upward as you would expect, but down, as if into a valley. The snow glows faintly, lit not by the sun above, but by something else, a glow rising from beneath. You take a step forward, then another, and the horizon curves away, opening into a vast hidden land. Is it a dream? A story? Or could it be the faint memory of something once believed, still echoing in the human mind? The polar openings remain one of the most enduring pieces of hollow Earth lore. From Mercator's maps to Simmers's theories, from tales of warm currents to the glow of the auroras, people have long imagined that at the very edges of our planet lie doorways into another world. And though science tells us no such holes exist, the fascination remains. Because in the end, the poles remind us of something vital, that even in an age of satellites and exploration, we still crave mystery. We still want to believe there are hidden doors waiting to be found. In our next chapter, we'll step into one of the most controversial stories of all, an explorer's account of venturing into a land beyond the poles, a tale that continues to fuel speculation today, the strange and disputed story of Admiral Byrd. When myths and maps speak of hollow Earth entrances at the poles, one story rises above the rest, half legend, half history, and still whispered about to this day. It is the story of Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd, a decorated American naval officer and polar explorer whose name became inseparable from the mystery of hidden worlds. Was he simply a brilliant adventurer who pushed the limits of human endurance? Or did he glimpse something extraordinary? Something that slipped between the edges of science and myth? Tonight, we walk through his tale, not to prove or disprove it, but to listen carefully, as though it were another whisper beneath our feet. Admiral Byrd was no ordinary figure. Born in 1888, he served with distinction in the US Navy and quickly earned a reputation for courage, skill, and a passion for exploration. He flew across the North Pole in 1926, or at least claimed to. His logbooks remain debated. Later, he led expeditions to Antarctica, bringing with him teams, ships, and even airplanes in an era when such journeys were perilous gambles with death. He was a man of discipline, duty, and honor. That is what makes the later stories about him so strange. If anyone could be trusted to speak truthfully, it was Byrd. And yet, his name became tied to one of the most extraordinary claims in modern legend, that he had discovered a hidden land beyond the poles. The most famous account comes from 1947, when Byrd supposedly undertook a flight over the North Pole. According to some reports, he did not simply fly over endless ice. Instead, he entered a region where the snow gave way to lush green valleys, rivers, and even signs of life. Some versions of the tale claim that he saw woolly mammoths walking below, creatures thought extinct for thousands of years. Others describe warm lakes and forests stretching beneath the Arctic sky. Even more astonishing, some say he encountered flying craft, machines unlike any built by human hands, that guided his plane safely into this hidden land. Much of this legend comes from a document often called Byrd's secret diary, though historians argue over its authenticity. In it, Byrd writes of flying into a hollow Earth region where advanced beings greeted him. He describes a city of radiant beauty, powered by energies unknown to us, inhabited by tall, peaceful people who expressed concern about humanity's use of atomic weapons. According to the diary, Byrd was given a message to deliver back to his leaders, that humanity was on a dangerous path, and that those who lived within the Earth hoped we would change course before it was too late. It is a breathtaking story, one that feels like it belongs more in the pages of a myth than a military logbook. And yet, because Byrd's name was attached, it took on an unusual weight. The story does not end in the North. Only 2 years earlier, in 1945-46, Byrd had led Operation High Jump, one of the largest expeditions to Antarctica ever mounted. With 13 ships, dozens of aircraft, and thousands of men, it was officially a mission to train for cold weather combat. But speculation has long surrounded it. Some suggest that Operation High Jump had secret goals: to investigate Nazi bases rumored to exist beneath the Antarctic ice, or even to confront unknown powers in hidden realms. In Byrd's later interviews, he made cryptic remarks about threats that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. Were these references to hostile nations, or to something stranger? Skeptics point out that much of Byrd's supposed diary appeared only decades after his death, surfacing in fringe publications. They argue it was likely a fabrication, crafted to feed into existing hollow Earth theories. Historians note that Byrd's real records show nothing beyond difficult flights, harsh weather, and the logistics of polar exploration. And yet, there are gaps. Certain parts of his expeditions remain strangely underdocumented. Certain remarks he made were oddly suggestive, and in the absence of clarity, mystery grows. What matters in the end is not whether Byrd truly saw mammoths or radiant cities, but how quickly his name became linked to the hollow Earth. By the mid-20th century, writers, conspiracy theorists, and adventurers were citing him as proof. His status as a decorated naval officer gave the legend credibility. If Byrd had spoken of hidden lands, who could dismiss him outright? And so his story spread. It seeped into radio shows, pulp magazines, and later, internet forums. Some imagined that Byrd had stumbled upon Agartha or Shambhala. Others said he had discovered bases belonging to lost civilizations, or even extraterrestrials who had chosen the inner Earth as their home. Like many great legends, the Byrd story resonates not because of its details, but because of its meaning. At its heart lies a simple, powerful image. An explorer flies beyond the known world, expecting only ice, but finds life, beauty, and wisdom. It is the classic hero's journey, but inverted, not into the stars above, but into the earth below. The secret diary is filled with messages of peace, warnings about human arrogance, and visions of a wiser, hidden people. Whether real or not, these words reflect our deepest hopes and fears, that somewhere, someone wiser than us is watching, hoping we do better before we destroy ourselves. Geologists and physicists, of course, dismiss hollow Earth theories. They explain that seismic waves, volcanic activity, and gravity all prove the planet is solid, with no space for vast inner realms. The polar regions, they say, hold only ice and rock. And yet science does not erase the appeal of the story. Even when disproven, the myth of Byrd's hidden land continues to glow in the human imagination. Because sometimes, what we crave is not certainty, but mystery. Picture yourself in the cockpit of Byrd's plane, flying high above endless white. The engines drone, the compass quivers, the horizon stretches into nothingness. Then slowly, the ice breaks apart, giving way to green valleys dotted with trees. Rivers sparkle in the sun. In the distance, shapes move, giant, shaggy forms that should not exist. You lean forward in disbelief as your instruments flicker and fail. And then suddenly a shadow passes overhead. Not a cloud, but a craft, sleek, silent, and impossible. It signals you to follow. You hesitate, heart pounding, but curiosity wins. You steer toward the unknown, crossing an invisible threshold into a world no map has ever shown. This is the vision that has stayed with us, not whether it happened, but that it could. Admiral Byrd's story, tangled as it is in fact and fiction, remains one of the most captivating chapters in hollow Earth lore. Whether it was a misunderstood account, a fabricated diary, or a genuine hidden truth, it has become more than history. It has become myth, a story retold not for proof, but for wonder. And as myths often do, it leads us onward. If Byrd spoke of hidden kingdoms beneath the ice, then surely he was not alone. For centuries, Eastern traditions have told of just such a place, a radiant hidden land called Shambhala. And perhaps, as we move deeper, we will find that Bird's strange tale is only one piece of a far older puzzle. When explorers of the West whispered about hollow earth entrances in the icy poles, far across the world, another set of traditions was already alive with similar visions. These did not come from military logs, nor from the notes of daring aviators, but from temples, scrolls, and the memories of storytellers who guarded ancient truths. In the snowy heights of the Himalayas, among the winding paths of Tibet and India, sages spoke of a radiant kingdom, hidden not above, but within the earth. It was called Shambhala, a place both physical and spiritual, at once a city and a state of being, a kingdom of light that could only be found by those who were truly prepared. Shambhala has been called many names. To some, it was Agartha, to others the city of the sun, to still others the inner paradise promised in secret prophecies. But at its heart, the story was always the same. There is more to the world than what our eyes see. And beneath the mountains and deserts, beyond the edges of our maps, lies a refuge of wisdom. The word Shambhala itself comes from Sanskrit, meaning a place of peace or a source of happiness. In Tibetan Buddhism, it is described as a hidden realm where enlightened beings dwell, guiding the destiny of the world from behind the veil of mystery. Some texts describe it as a kingdom filled with palaces of crystal and streets paved with jewels. Others see it as less literal, a realm of consciousness accessible only to the pure of heart. But one thing was always constant. Shambhala was hidden. You could not simply stumble upon it while walking in the mountains. It was protected by powerful forces, sometimes said to be spiritual guardians, sometimes described as illusions that confused travelers and turned them back. This secrecy made the legend stronger, for what is hidden feels more precious. Central to the myth of Shambhala is the Kalachakra Tantra, a revered text in Tibetan Buddhism. It describes Shambhala not merely as a place of beauty, but as a kingdom that plays a vital role in the fate of the world. According to prophecy, when the world falls into great darkness, a ruler from Shambhala will emerge with an army of light to defeat the forces of ignorance and restore harmony. This prophecy is strikingly similar to myths found all around the globe: hidden kings, sleeping heroes, and saviors waiting in secret places until the hour of need. In the West, we speak of King Arthur returning when Britain requires him. In Germany, it is Emperor Frederick Barbarossa sleeping beneath a mountain. In the East, it is the Lord of Shambhala awaiting the right moment to act. The connection between these myths makes one wonder, do they all point back to the same idea? That somewhere, hidden beneath mountain, desert, or polar ice, lies a sanctuary where hope is kept safe. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Western writers began linking Shambhala to the broader hollow earth narrative. French occultist Joseph-Alexandre Saint-Yves d'Alvedre wrote of a hidden underground kingdom he called Agartha, said to be connected by tunnels stretching beneath continents. In his vision, Agartha was a realm of perfect government and spiritual wisdom, guiding humanity from the shadows. Though scholars doubt that Saint-Yves had access to any authentic Eastern sources, his writings captured the imagination of Europe. Soon, Agartha and Shambhala began to blur together in the Western mind, forming a single great myth of an underground kingdom of light. It was not long before explorers, mystics, and even intelligence agents began chasing these whispers into the mountains of Tibet, hoping to find physical proof. One of the most fascinating figures in this story is Nicholas Roerich, a Russian painter, philosopher, and mystic who journeyed through Central Asia in the 1920s and 30s. He claimed to have heard countless local legends about Shambhala. Villagers spoke of hidden doorways in the mountains, of bright lights shining at night from caves, and of guides who vanished suddenly when followed. Roerich believed Shambhala was real, not only as a spiritual symbol, but as a hidden kingdom that could be accessed under the right conditions. His paintings captured glowing visions of Himalayan landscapes, with mysterious lights and radiant skies, suggesting portals to another realm. Even more curious, Rorica's expeditions caught the attention of political powers. Both the Soviet Union and later Nazi Germany showed interest in his accounts. The Nazis, in particular, sent expeditions into Tibet, driven by the belief that Shambhala, or Agartha, might hold lost Aryan wisdom. In this way, the myth of Shambhala was drawn into the shadows of 20th century geopolitics, fueling secret missions and strange alliances. In Tibetan texts, Shambhala is not always described as being beneath the earth. Sometimes it is said to exist in another dimension, shielded by spiritual energy. Other times, it is described in physical terms, as if it were a real kingdom hidden by mountains and deserts. Western hollow earth theorists eagerly seized upon the second view. To them, Shambhala was not just a hidden valley, but the capital city of the inner world, linked to polar openings and subterranean tunnels. They argued that stories of radiant palaces and wise beings were simply descriptions of advanced inner earth civilizations, interpreted by Tibetans in religious language. It was a convenient blending of myth and science fiction. The peaceful monks of Tibet had their spiritual kingdom. The explorers of the West had their hollow earth. Between them, Shambhala became the bridge. Whether literal or symbolic, Shambhala reflects something profound about the human mind. At its core, it represents the hope that wisdom and peace are not lost, but hidden, kept safe until the world is ready. In a way, Shambhala is less about a secret city than about us. It is the belief that there is always a reserve of goodness, always a hidden spring of light, even when the surface world is full of chaos. To seek Shambhala is to seek the best of ourselves, and yet, the image of hidden valleys, glowing palaces, and tunnels into the heart of the earth is too strong to dismiss as pure metaphor. Again and again, explorers and dreamers have searched for it, as if something more tangible lies beneath the story. Close your eyes. Picture yourself climbing the high passes of the Himalayas. The air is thin, your breath sharp. Snow crunches beneath your boots. Ahead, jagged peaks glow in the rising sun. Then, without warning, a shift in the landscape. A canyon opens where no map shows one. You descend carefully, and the wind falls silent. At the bottom, you see a cave mouth, warm air flowing out of it, carrying the faint scent of flowers. Inside, torches burn with a steady light, though no one is near. You walk further, and suddenly the rock opens into a valley lit by a hidden sun, its fields green and rivers shining. Figures approach, tall, serene, their eyes calm and ancient. They say nothing at first, but you feel welcome. You realize you have crossed the threshold into Shambhala. This vision, whether dream or destiny, is what has kept seekers searching for centuries. When Admiral Byrd's rumored diary described a hidden kingdom of wise beings inside the earth, many immediately connected it to Shambhala. Could it be that Byrd had stumbled upon the very place Tibetan texts spoke of? Had he, flying over the Arctic, found an entrance to the same world that monks described in parables? The details aligned too well for some to dismiss. Advanced beings, warnings about humanity's misuse of power, a hidden realm of peace, all echoed the Kalachakra teachings. Whether by chance or design, Byrd's tale and the Shambhala myth merged into one larger story. The earth itself holds guardians of wisdom, waiting until we are ready to listen. The legend of Shambhala reminds us of a truth that is both humbling and comforting, that the world we see may not be the whole world. Beneath mountains, beyond poles, or within the chambers of our own hearts, there may always be a hidden place where light survives. For explorers of maps, Shambhala became a destination. For monks, it was a promise. For dreamers, it was proof that hope never dies. And for those who believe in Hollow Earth, it is perhaps the capital of a civilization we have only begun to imagine. But myths do not exist in isolation. If the East spoke of Shambhala and the West of Byrd's hidden lands, then surely others too must have glimpsed the same mystery in their own ways. And indeed, we find echoes in another ancient tale, the journey of Gilgamesh, who also sought the gateways into the underworld. Long before Admiral Byrd lifted his plane over the Arctic ice, before Tibetan monks whispered of Shambhala, and even before Plato wrote of Atlantis, the people of Mesopotamia were already telling stories of hidden worlds beneath the earth. These were not always places of peace and wisdom. Sometimes they were kingdoms of shadow, realms where the dead walked and gods sat in judgment. At the center of these stories stands one of humanity's oldest literary heroes, Gilgamesh, king of Uruk. His epic, carved on clay tablets thousands of years ago, is often called the first great story ever written. Within its lines, we glimpse not only the struggles of a man searching for immortality, but also the Mesopotamian vision of what lay beneath our feet. To follow Gilgamesh into the underworld is to descend into one of the earliest maps of hidden earth. Gilgamesh was a mighty king, part man and part divine, but his tale is defined not by his strength, but by his sorrow. When his closest companion, Enkidu, died, Gilgamesh was shattered. The death of his friend forced him to face a truth he could not bear, that even kings, even heroes, must die. In desperation, he set out on a quest to find Utnapishtim, the immortal survivor of the Great Flood, hoping to learn the secret of eternal life. His journey took him to the very edges of the world, beyond mountains, seas, and deserts, into the lands where no mortal dared tread. It is here that his story brushes against the hollow earth tradition, for Gilgamesh does not only wander above the ground, he seeks the passages that descend into the underworld itself. One of the most striking episodes comes when Gilgamesh reaches the mountain of Mashu, described as a gateway guarded by scorpion beings, creatures half man, half insect, whose gaze was said to kill. These guardians stood at the entrance to a tunnel that pierced the earth. The tunnel led to a land of darkness, stretching for leagues upon leagues. Gilgamesh entered it, walking in complete blackness, guided only by his determination. For 12 leagues he stumbled forward until, at last, he emerged into a world of light, a secret garden at the edge of the god's domain. This passage through Mashu has long fascinated readers. Was it simply myth, or was it a memory of actual caves and tunnels, exaggerated over time? Hollow Earth theorists later seized on it as an early account of a literal entrance into the inner realms of the earth. Unlike the radiant Shambhala, the Mesopotamian underworld was no paradise. It was called Irkala, the land of no return. Here dwelt the dead, clothed in feathers or dust, eating clay, wandering without joy. Its queen was Ereshkigal, sister of the goddess of love, Inanna. Her realm was dark, silent, and absolute. Yet even this grim vision suggests a deep, ancient sense that beneath the earth lay more than stone. There was a kingdom, a ruler, and laws that even the gods respected. To the Mesopotamians, the ground beneath their feet was not empty. It was structured, populated, and essential to the balance of the cosmos. Another Mesopotamian myth that echoes the hollow earth tradition is the tale of Inanna's descent to the underworld. Inanna, the goddess of love and war, decided to visit her sister Ereshkigal's realm. To do so, she passed through 7 gates, and at each gate she was stripped of her ornaments, her crown, her jewelry, her robes, until she arrived naked and powerless before the Queen of the Dead. This story symbolized many things: the stripping away of ego, the inevitability of death, and the cycles of fertility. But it also reinforced the idea of an ordered hidden world beneath the surface, one that could be entered through portals and gates. Later traditions would echo this motif of gates and guardians, from the medieval idea of hell's 7 levels to the Tibetan bardo stages of the afterlife. Again and again, humanity pictured the earth as a layered mystery, with doors leading inward. Some researchers suggest that these Mesopotamian myths may preserve faint memories of ancient cave systems or subterranean temples. After all, Mesopotamia was crisscrossed with underground water channels, cisterns, and even catacombs. To a people living in harsh deserts, the Earth's hidden spaces must have seemed both fearful and sacred. Gilgamesh's journey through darkness before reaching a secret garden resonates strongly with later Hollow Earth imagery. A tunnel through the crust, leading to an unexpected inner paradise. Even if purely symbolic, it reveals how deeply the idea of hidden worlds was woven into human imagination from the very beginning. Picture yourself following Gilgamesh into the mountain of Mashu. The scorpion guardians rise before you, their eyes glowing like embers. They study you silently, then step aside, granting passage. You enter the tunnel. Blackness swallows you. Hours pass. You grope along the wall, feeling rough stone beneath your fingertips. The air grows damp. At last, a faint glow ahead, a light not of sun or moon, but of some hidden source. You emerge into a valley unlike any you have seen. Trees heavy with fruit, rivers of clear water, skies that shimmer strangely. It is not the world you left behind. It is something deeper, older, perhaps closer to the heart of the earth itself. This is how the Epic of Gilgamesh lingers, not as a dusty relic, but as an invitation to imagine. Myth scholars often emphasize the psychological meaning of these journeys. To descend into the underworld is to face mortality, loss, and the unknown. For Gilgamesh, it was a way of wrestling with grief. For Inanna, it was a path of transformation. But symbolism does not erase the physical imagery. The tunnels, gates, and hidden gardens remain vivid. Even when seen as metaphors, they plant the seed of a deeper question. Why did so many ancient peoples imagine the earth as hollowed with realms? Perhaps because caves, caverns, and underground rivers already suggested such worlds. Step into a cave, and you are in a place both earthly and otherworldly, dark, echoing, separate from the surface. Multiply that sensation by myth, and you arrive at Irkalla, Mashu, and Shambhala. Eventually, Gilgamesh did reach Utnapishtim, the immortal man who survived the flood. But his meeting brought no easy answers. Utnapishtim told him that immortality was not for mortals, that even kings must die. Yet he revealed a secret, a plant that grew in the depths of the sea, capable of renewing youth. Gilgamesh found the plant, but before he could use it, a serpent stole it away. The message was clear. The gift of eternal life is not meant for humankind. And so, Gilgamesh returned to Uruk, wiser, but still mortal. This ending may seem bleak, yet it carries a profound truth. The underworld journeys of myth are not meant to grant us escape, but to remind us of our limits. The hidden realms teach us humility. The Mesopotamian underworld myths shaped later cultures deeply. The Greeks built upon them, creating Hades and Tartarus. The Hebrews, living nearby, spoke of Sheol. Even Christian and Islamic visions of hell owe echoes to these ancient stories. At the same time, the idea of tunnels, gates, and secret paradises within the earth continued to resurface, weaving itself into medieval legends and modern Hollow Earth theories. It is as if the Epic of Gilgamesh planted a seed that never stopped growing. The journey of Gilgamesh shows us one of humanity's first maps of the worlds beneath. It was not a map drawn with ink, but with grief, wonder, and imagination. His steps into Mashu's tunnel mirror every later myth of hidden kingdoms and polar openings. Where Tibetan monks saw Shambhala, Gilgamesh saw a secret garden of the gods. Where Admiral Byrd reported radiant beings, the Mesopotamians spoke of Utnapishtim and Ereshkigal. Each culture, in its own way, looked beneath the earth and saw both danger and hope. And so the chain continues. From Gilgamesh, we turn now toward the myths of another ancient land, Greece, where philosophers and poets also spoke of hidden caverns, of entrances to Hades, and of mysteries that lay within the earth. The Greeks inherited many things from Mesopotamia and Egypt, writing, astronomy, mathematics, but they also inherited something subtler, a fascination with what lies beneath the surface of the earth. In their myths, caverns were never mere hollows of stone. They were thresholds, passages, mouths of the underworld. If Mesopotamia gave us Irkala and the mountain of Mashu, Greece gave us Hades, the shadowy realm of the dead, ruled by a stern god of the same name. To reach it, one did not simply die. There were routes, caves, and rivers, each described in the songs of poets and the whispers of oracles. To walk into a Greek cavern was to step onto the edge of eternity. The Greek underworld was both feared and respected. It was not a place of fiery punishment like later visions of hell, nor was it a paradise. It was simply where the souls of mortals went when life ended. Some found peace in the meadows of asphodel. A few, the blessed, reached the Elysian fields. Others, the wicked, sank into Tartarus, a pit of torment deeper than the earth itself. But all were united in one truth: Hades was beneath. To reach it, one had to cross boundaries, rivers, gates, caverns. The earth was alive with these openings, and stories spread of those rare mortals who had found them. 5 rivers marked the Greek underworld, each with its own power. Styx, the river of oaths, whose waters bound even the gods to their word. Acheron, the river of woe, where the ferryman Charon guided the dead across. Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, whose waters erased memory. Phlegethon, the river of fire, glowing with flame. Cocytus, the river of wailing, echoing with cries of the lost. These rivers were more than poetic symbols. In many regions of Greece, real rivers and lakes were linked to them. Springs bubbling with strange gases, caves exhaling fumes, or waters that seemed bottomless. All were seen as earthly reflections of these mythic streams. One of the most intriguing sights was the Necromanteon of Ephora, a temple in northwestern Greece dedicated to necromancy, the calling of the dead. Pilgrims came here to speak with lost loved ones or seek guidance from spirits. The temple stood above a complex of underground chambers. Visitors descended into darkness, offered sacrifices, and walked through twisting passages. Priests may have used smoke, echo, and clever tricks to conjure voices, but to the Greeks, these chambers were not illusions. They were believed to be one of the gates to Hades itself. Archaeologists uncovered remains of these tunnels in the 20th century, revealing stone corridors that seemed designed to disorient, to make one feel as though leaving the surface world behind. In this way, the myths of caverns were not only told, they were enacted. Another famous entrance to Hades lay at Cape Tainaron in the southern Peloponnesus. There, at the very tip of Greece, a dark cave opened to the sea. Locals said it was one of the underworld's gates. It was through this cave, according to myth, that Heracles descended to capture the 3-headed dog Cerberus during his 12th labor. It was here, too, that Orpheus entered in search of his beloved Eurydice, playing his lyre to soften the hearts of Hades and Persephone. Even today, the cave at Tainaron carries an uncanny atmosphere. Standing before its mouth, waves crashing around, one can easily imagine it as the threshold of another world. The story of Orpheus is perhaps the most haunting of all Greek descents. Orpheus was the greatest musician, whose songs could charm animals, trees, even stones. When his wife Eurydice died from a snakebite, he could not accept her loss. He traveled to Tainaron, entered the cave, and descended into Hades. There, he sang so beautifully that all the underworld paused to listen. The Furies wept, the rivers stilled, even Hades himself relented. Orpheus was allowed to take Eurydice back, on one condition: he must not look back at her until they had reached the surface. They climbed together, Orpheus leading the way, the light of the world above growing brighter. But just before stepping into the sun, doubt seized him. He turned. Eurydice vanished, pulled forever into shadow. This story echoes across centuries as a symbol of love, doubt, and the fragile line between life and death. But it also reinforces the Greek belief in physical passages into the underworld, caves one could walk into, emerging either blessed or broken. Not all Greek encounters with the underworld were tragic. Some were initiatory, tied to the secretive rites of Eleusis, near Athens. Here, initiates participated in rituals honoring Demeter and Persephone. The ceremonies, still mysterious today, involved symbolic descents into darkness, followed by revelations of light. Though details were kept secret, we know that caves and underground chambers played a central role. The initiates likely experienced a reenactment of Persephone's descent into Hades and her return, symbolizing death and rebirth. The Eleusinian mysteries show us that for the Greeks, the underworld was not merely a place of fear, it was also a place of wisdom, a realm that, if entered ritually, could grant hope beyond death. It is worth pausing to ask why the Greeks placed so many entrances to Hades in real caverns. The answer may lie in the land itself. Greece is riddled with caves, sinkholes, and geothermal vents. In places like Delphi, intoxicating vapors rose from fissures in the rock. Lakes swallowed whole rivers. Caves echoed with eerie sounds. To ancient eyes, these were not random phenomena. They were thresholds. The underworld was not an abstract idea. It was beneath their feet, and these openings were its doors. This blending of geology and mythology is part of what makes Greek stories so vivid. They grounded the cosmic in the local, turning every cave into a possible entrance to Hades. Picture yourself at the cave of Titan-Centaur. The air is cool, damp with sea spray. Waves thunder against the rocks, and the cave yawns before you, dark as ink. You step inside, torchlight flickering. The stone walls close around you. Deeper and deeper you walk. The sound of the sea fades. The air grows still. Somewhere ahead, a faint trickle of water echoes. You reach a chamber where the floor slopes downward, and suddenly you feel it. That sense of passing a threshold, of leaving the world of the living behind. Whether you believe or not, in that moment, you understand why the Greeks placed their underworld here. The earth itself whispers it. For the Greeks, as for the Mesopotamians, the underworld was both physical and symbolic. It reminded them that life and death were woven together. Caverns and gates were not simply holes in the ground. They were metaphors for the unknown within us. Yet once again, these myths would ripple outward, feeding into later hollow earth theories. When 18th and 19th century explorers wrote of polar openings or subterranean kingdoms, they often cited the Greeks as precedents. The caves of Titan-Centaur, the Necromantean, the rivers of Hades, all seemed like echoes of a hidden geography beneath the surface. Greek mythology gave us some of the richest images of hidden earth. Caves as entrances, rivers flowing in shadow, gods who ruled beneath. Their stories remind us that for millennia, humanity has felt the pull of caverns not only as empty spaces, but as doorways. From Gilgamesh's Mashu to Orpheus at Titan-Centaur, we see the same theme: descent, passage, transformation. The earth itself becomes a teacher, offering wisdom to those brave enough to enter. And as we move forward, the chain of myth continues. If the Greeks mapped Hades in their caves, then the Norse too carved their own vision of hidden realms, cold, vast, and guarded by giants. To them, the underworld was not just below, but wrapped around the roots of the world tree itself. If the Mesopotamians imagined gates through mountains, and the Greeks mapped their underworld through caves and rivers, the Norse peoples of the far north gave us a vision both broader and deeper, a whole cosmos held together by a single tree. They called it Yggdrasil, the world tree, and its roots and branches connected every realm of existence. To the Norse, the world was not a flat plane or a hollow sphere. It was a layered mystery. The surface on which humans walked, Midgard, was only one circle in a vast pattern. Above it stretched Asgard, home of the gods. Beneath it and around it spread other realms, worlds of frost and flame, of dwarves and giants, of light and death. If you looked up, you saw the branches of Yggdrasil reaching into the heavens. But if you looked down into caves, roots, and dark waters, you were peering into other hidden lands. Norse myth described 9 worlds, all held together by Yggdrasil. Asgard, the realm of the Aesir gods, with Odin's hall of Valhalla. Vanaheim, home of the Vanir gods, connected to fertility and prosperity. Alfheim, land of the elves, beings of light and beauty. Midgard, the human world, encircled by an ocean serpent. Jotunheim, land of the giants, always at odds with the gods. Svartalfheim, home of the dwarves, master smiths in stone halls. Muspelheim, the fiery realm of primordial flame, guarded by Surt. Niflheim, the realm of ice, mist, and eternal cold. Helheim, the underworld, ruled by Hel, daughter of Loki. Each of these realms was connected through Yggdrasil's roots and branches. And here is where the Norse worldview connects deeply to our theme of hidden Earth. For many of these realms were imagined not in the sky, but beneath, below the roots, under the mountains, deep in shadow. 3 great roots supported Yggdrasil, each reaching into a different world. One root stretched into Asgard, where the gods dwelled. Another reached into Jotunheim, the land of the giants. The third extended into Niflheim, near the wellspring of all waters, called Hvergelmir. At these roots flowed sacred wells, Urdabrunna, the well of fate, tended by the Norns, who spun the destinies of all beings. Mimisbrunna, Mimir's well, a spring of wisdom and memory, guarded by Mimir's severed head. Odin himself gave an eye to drink from it. Hvergelmir, the roaring cauldron, source of countless rivers, seething with serpents, and the great dragon Nidhugga, who gnawed at the root. These wells and roots were not only metaphors. To the Norse imagination, they were as real as mountains and seas. When you looked into a dark pool or entered a cold cave where water dripped endlessly, you might imagine you were hearing the far-off echo of Hvergelmir, or feeling the presence of the Norns beneath the tree. Helheim, the underworld. Among the realms beneath, the most important was Helheim. Unlike the fiery Muspelheim or icy Niflheim, Helheim was not a place of chaos. It was a realm of the dead. Those who died in battle might go to Valhalla or Freya's Hall, but ordinary people, farmers, fishermen, women, children, most went to Helheim. Helheim was ruled by Hel, a goddess whose body was half living flesh and half corpse, a being of twilight between life and death. Her hall was called Eljudnir, sprayed with snowstorms, a cold, shadowy dwelling. The entrance to Helheim was guarded by Garmr, a monstrous hound chained at a cave's mouth. To pass, one crossed the river Gjöll over a bridge of shining gold. Again, notice the echo with Greek and Mesopotamian thought. A cave, a guardian beast, a river to cross. Across cultures, the imagery of the underworld converges. Archaeology shows us that the Norse were surrounded by real places that shape these ideas. Scandinavia is filled with barrows, burial mounds built of earth and stone, often with chambers inside. To enter one is to step into a man-made cavern, a womb of earth holding the dead. The sagas tell us that sometimes these barrows were not silent. Heroes could encounter Draga, undead beings who guarded treasures within. The barrow thus became both tomb and doorway, a miniature Helheim. Natural caves also played a role. Iceland, with its volcanic tunnels and steaming vents, must have felt like a landscape where Muspelheim and Niflheim touched. To walk into such a cave was to feel the breath of the other worlds. One of the most famous myths of descent in Norse lore is that of Odin himself. In his endless quest for wisdom, Odin traveled to Mimir's well, deep beneath Yggdrasil. There he sacrificed an eye to drink from its waters, gaining vision of hidden things. In another myth, Odin hung himself upon Yggdrasil for 9 nights, pierced by his own spear, fasting and suffering until he glimpsed the runes, the deep secrets of the cosmos. Though not a cave journey, it mirrors the same theme: descent, sacrifice, transformation. For the Norse, to seek wisdom was always to go downward, beneath the surface, into roots, wells, and death itself. The Norse vision of the end of the world, Ragnarok, also ties into hidden realms. At the appointed time, the fire giants of Muspelheim, led by Surt, would rise. The great serpent, Jörmungandr, would uncoil from the sea around Midgard. Hel would release her hosts of the dead, and Nidhöggr, the dragon beneath Yggdrasil, would break free. Notice how all these apocalyptic forces come from beneath, from caverns, seas, roots. For the Norse, danger always brewed below the surface, waiting to erupt. Yggdrasil is more than a tree. It is a map of consciousness. Its branches stretch into the heavens, aspiration, divinity, light. Its trunk is the world of humans, struggle, balance, daily life. Its roots sink into shadow, death, fate, mystery. When Norsemen told these stories around fires in longhouses, they were not merely explaining the cosmos. They were giving meaning to human experience. Life is rooted in mystery, nourished by hidden waters. This symbolic tree later echoed in many traditions: Christian crosses, Kabbalistic trees, even modern theories of the subconscious. Yggdrasil remains a powerful image of how inner and outer worlds are entwined. Close your eyes and picture it. This text, recorded in the 16th century from older oral traditions, is one of the richest sources of Mesoamerican myth. According to it, the rulers of Xibalba were the lords of death, grim figures with names like One Death, Seven Death, Puss Master, Jaundice Master, Bone Staff, Skull Staff. Each presided over different afflictions and torments, reflecting the diseases and dangers of daily life. To reach Xibalba, a soul had to descend through caves and rivers. One must cross a river of scorpions, then a river of blood, and then a river of pus. After this, the path led to crossroads that confused and misled travelers. The most famous story of Xibalba involves the hero twins, Hunahpu and Exbalanque. Long before their birth, the Lords of Death had summoned their father and uncle to Xibalba for a ball game. The two went, but they were tricked and killed. Later, the twins themselves were born, inheriting their father's skills. When the Lords of Death again demanded a game, the twins accepted, knowing it was a trap. Their journey into Xibalba is like an ancient map of the underworld. They crossed the rivers, passed through deadly houses, the dark house filled with total night, the cold house where freezing winds bit at their bones, the jaguar house filled with ravenous beasts, the bat house where vampire bats swooped, and the razor house where blades leapt from the walls. Each time, the twins outwitted the traps. They tricked the Lords of Death, endured trials, and eventually defeated them. The story ends with the twins' transformation into the sun and the moon, bringing balance between life above and death below. This myth carries the familiar theme: descent, struggle, death, and rebirth. To the Maya, it explained not only the path of souls, but the rhythm of day and night, light and shadow. Unlike in some traditions, the Maya placed strong emphasis on real-world caves as entrances to Xibalba. Throughout Guatemala, Belize, and the Yucatan, archaeologists have found caves filled with offerings, pottery, bones, torches, even whole human sacrifices. One of the most famous is the Acton Tunachil Muknal cave in Belize. Deep inside, explorers found the Crystal Maiden, the skeleton of a sacrificed young woman, calcified by dripping minerals until her bones glitter. For the Maya, this cave was not symbolic. It was literally a doorway to the gods of the underworld. To enter such a cave, to light a torch and step into its dripping darkness, was to step onto the road to Xibalba. For the Aztecs, the afterlife was less about punishment and more about inevitability. Unless one died in battle, in childbirth, or by sacrifice to the gods of water and fire, the soul went to Mictlan, a long and difficult journey through 9 levels of the underworld. At the top stood the entrance, a dark place where the soul was stripped of worldly possessions. From there, the path wound downward, Itzcuintlan, the place of the dog. Here, souls needed the help of a sacred dog, usually a yellow or red Xoloitzcuintli, the Mexican hairless dog, to cross a wide river. Those who mistreated dogs in life found none to help them in death. Tepeme Monamictlan, the place of crashing mountains, where peaks smashed together endlessly. Souls had to pass through carefully to avoid being crushed. Iztapetl, the mountain of obsidian, sharp with blades of volcanic glass. Itzahekayan, the place of icy winds, cutting the flesh from the bones. Panquetlacaloyan, where spirits were sent flying and tossed by invisible hands. Tememinaloyan, the place of arrows, where unseen warriors shot darts at the passing souls. Teoloqualoyan, where the heart of the traveler was devoured by a jaguar. Apanohuayan, a river of darkness with shifting waters. Chikunamictlan, the final place, the realm of Mictlantecutli and Mictacasihuatl, the Lord and Lady of Death. Only after passing through all 9 stages would the soul reach rest. It was not punishment. It was simply the journey every mortal had to face. At the heart of Mictlan sat its ruler, Mictlantecutli. Depicted as a skeletal figure with wide eyes and a gaping jaw, he wore necklaces of human eyeballs and bells of bone. Despite his terrifying appearance, he was not cruel. His role was inevitable, impartial. Death was not evil to the Aztecs, it was simply part of the cycle. Mictlantecutli's wife, Mictecacihuatl, shared his throne. Together, they presided over the realm calmly, without malice. In Aztec thought, life fed death, and death fed life. Crops grew because people died and returned to the earth. Sacrifices kept the sun moving. The underworld was not separate, it was woven into existence. Today, the Aztec vision of Mictlan survives in modern Mexican culture through the Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. Families build altars, decorate them with marigolds, and leave food for their ancestors. It is not a day of fear, but of welcome, a reminder that the barrier between living and dead is thin. The brightly painted skulls, the skeletal figures dressed in clothes, all echo the ancient image of Mictlantecutli. What was once dread has become celebration, a way of keeping loved ones close. Whether in Xibalba or Mictlan, the Mesoamerican underworlds share striking similarities with other traditions. Rivers to cross, like the Greek Styx or Norse Gjöll. Trials and ordeals, echoing Gilgamesh, Orpheus, or Dante. Guardians and beasts, from jaguars to bats to monstrous dogs. Multiple layers or stages, each more difficult than the last. A final ruler of death, not necessarily evil, but powerful and unavoidable. It is as if across time and culture, humanity has always pictured the afterlife as a descent through trials, ending in an audience with a sovereign of death. Picture yourself in the Maya jungle at night. You hold a torch, its flame flickering against limestone walls. Ahead yawns a cavern mouth. You step inside, the air damp, the ground slippery. Water drips, echoing like whispers. You descend deeper and deeper until the torchlight reveals carvings, skulls, serpents, jaguars. You realize you are walking the road to Xibalba, or imagine you are an Aztec soul, newly dead. A Xoloitzcuintli dog waits for you, its eyes bright, tail wagging. It leaps into the river, and you follow, trusting it to lead you across. Behind you, the world of the living fades. Ahead, the mountains grind, the winds howl, the jaguar waits. You know the path will be long, but you walk it, because all must walk it. The Maya and Aztec underworlds remind us that death was never abstract. It was mapped, storied, prepared for. Caves, rivers, mountains. These were not symbols only, but real landscapes tied to spiritual belief. And like other cultures, their myths tell us something profound. That descent is not just about fear, but about transformation. The hero twins became sun and moon. The Aztec soul, after 9 trials, found rest. Death was a passage, not an end. From the caves of Xibalba to the 9 levels of Mictlan, we see once more that across cultures, the human mind keeps circling back to the same vision. Beneath our feet lies a hidden world, a place of shadow, testing, and renewal. Next, we will shift from the jungles of Mesoamerica to the deserts and temples of ancient Egypt, where the afterlife was mapped as a great journey through the Duat, the Egyptian underworld of gates, guardians, and stars. Few civilizations mapped the afterlife as carefully as the ancient Egyptians. To them, death was not a sudden plunge into shadow, but a long, perilous journey through a realm called the Duat. This underworld was both real and symbolic, a landscape of rivers, gates, guardians, and judgment. The Egyptians built entire texts, spells, and rituals to guide the dead through it. The Book of the Dead, the Amduat, the Book of Gates. They decorated tombs with detailed maps of the journey, ensuring that pharaohs and commoners alike would not wander lost. For them, death was a passage, and with the right knowledge, one could emerge not in despair, but in eternal life beneath the sun. The Duat was not simply hell or heaven. It was a mysterious in-between place where the sun god Ra traveled each night. Just as the sun disappeared from the sky at dusk, it was said to sink into the Duat, moving through its 12 regions during the 12 hours of night, only to rise again at dawn. This cosmic rhythm linked the fate of humans to the fate of the sun. The dead traveled alongside Ra, hoping to survive the same trials so that they too might rise reborn in the morning. The Duat was imagined as a land of twisting rivers, caverns, burning deserts, and fertile fields. It was both terrifying and wondrous. To the Egyptians, it mirrored the Nile, a lifeline of water winding through danger, sustaining life and offering passage. One of the most striking features of the Duat is its gates. The soul had to pass through numerous gates, each guarded by strange beings, part human, part beast, often armed with knives or serpents. At each gate, the traveler was challenged. To pass, one needed the correct spell, name, or password. This is why Egyptians placed papyrus scrolls with incantations in tombs, or painted them on walls. Without the right words, the soul would be turned away or destroyed. The Book of Gates describes these passages in detail, some guarded by fire-breathing serpents, others by gods with the heads of crocodiles or lions. Each test reminded the living that knowledge and preparation mattered. To die without wisdom was to risk being trapped forever. The Duat was populated with countless strange beings. Among them were Apep, Apophis, the great serpent of chaos, enemy of Ra. Each night, Apep attempted to devour the sun god's bark, plunging the world into eternal darkness. Only through the chants of priests and the help of other gods was Apep defeated. Amit, the devourer, part crocodile, lion, and hippopotamus. She waited at the hall of judgment to consume the hearts of the unworthy. Fire serpents and demons, guardians who attacked souls unprepared for their challenges. For the Egyptians, these were not myths in the sense of fairy tales. They were forces of nature, chaos, and morality, made real in story and image. At the center of the Duat stood its most famous trial, the weighing of the heart. Upon reaching the hall of Ma'at, the soul faced Osiris, lord of the underworld, seated on his throne. Around him stood 42 divine judges, each representing a principle of truth and order. The soul's heart was placed on a scale, balanced against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth. If the heart was light, balanced, and free of wrongdoing, the soul was judged worthy. It joined Osiris in the field of reeds, a paradise of fertile fields where loved ones reunited. If the heart was heavy with lies and sin, it was devoured by Amit, ending the soul's existence forever. This was not eternal torment, but annihilation, non-existence, the worst fate imaginable to Egyptians who believed in the eternal cycle of life. For the worthy, the journey ended in the field of reeds. Here, the soul lived much as it had on earth, but in perfection. The Nile flowed endlessly, crops grew without toil, and families were reunited. Fishermen fished, farmers farmed, children played, all without hunger, sorrow, or pain. Importantly, this paradise was not entirely separate from earthly life. It was a mirror, a perfected reflection of the Nile Valley. In this way, the Egyptians envisioned eternity not as an abstract heaven, but as a continuation of the world they knew, made eternal. For pharaohs, the Duat carried extra significance. Their tombs, like those in the Valley of the Kings, were inscribed with entire books of the underworld. The Amduat, for instance, detailed the 12 hours of Ra's nightly journey, with illustrations of each hour. By aligning themselves with Ra, pharaohs believed they too would rise with the sun. The Duat was not just a place for the dead, but a cosmic path that ensured the renewal of both the king and the world. Egyptian tombs were designed as miniature versions of the Duat. Corridors twisted like rivers. Walls showed guardians and gods. Inscriptions gave spells and passwords. Burial chambers were placed deep, symbolizing descent into the earth. The pyramids themselves may have been seen as cosmic mountains, artificial horizons through which the soul ascended to the stars. Yet within them, shafts and corridors led downward, reminding us again of the double motion: descent into the Duat, ascent into eternity. At the heart of all Egyptian thought was Ma'at: truth, order, balance. To live in Ma'at was to align with the cosmos. To act against it was to invite chaos, Isfet. The Duat was therefore not random trial, but moral test. The weighing of the heart ensured that only those who lived in harmony with Ma'at found eternity. In this way, the Egyptians gave us one of the earliest ethical afterlives. Your deeds determined your fate. Imagine the sun setting over the Nile. Its red disk sinks behind the desert horizon. To the Egyptian mind, this was not disappearance, but descent, Ra entering the Duat. As darkness spread, priests in temples chanted spells to help Ra's bark travel safely. They recited hymns to defeat Apep, ensuring dawn would come. All through the night, Ra fought chaos, passed gates, overcame serpents. And then, light returned. The sun rose, victorious. To the Egyptians, each sunrise was proof that the Duat had been crossed successfully, that order had triumphed over chaos once more. In death, the soul hoped to join this cycle, to ride with Ra, to be reborn with the dawn. The Egyptian Duat shares themes with other traditions we've explored. Like the Greek underworld, it has rivers, judges, and guardians. Like the Mesopotamian realm, it emphasizes gates and trials. Like the Norse myths, it imagines cosmic renewal tied to daily cycles. Like the Maya and Aztec beliefs, it maps the afterlife in multiple stages. Yet it remains uniquely Egyptian in its marriage of morality, nature, and cosmic order. The Duat was not a distant dream. It was as present as the setting sun, as real as the Nile flowing at one's feet. Close your eyes. You are an ancient Egyptian, newly departed. Priests have placed amulets on your chest, papyrus spells in your tomb. You awaken in darkness, drifting on a river. A gate looms ahead, guarded by a lion-headed figure. You whisper the words written long ago, the name, the spell, the truth. The gate opens. You pass through houses of fire, serpents of flame, caverns of shadow. At last, you stand in the hall of Ma'at. Your heart beats in your chest. It is lifted and placed upon the scale. Opposite lies a single feather, pure and light. The beam tilts, wavers, then steadies. Your heart is balanced. Osiris nods. Amit turns away. Ahead, fields stretch in golden light, reeds swaying in the breeze. You step forward, into eternity. The Egyptian Duat shows us a vision of death as journey, trial, and renewal. It was not chaos for chaos's sake, nor punishment for all. It was a structured path, guided by Ma'at, with reward for those who lived truthfully. By mapping the afterlife so carefully, Egyptians sought to master the unknown. They taught that with preparation, wisdom, and virtue, one could face even death and emerge whole. As we leave the Nile and its tombs behind, our next step will take us east again, to the lands of India and Tibet, where Buddhist and Hindu traditions mapped their own hidden realms, the terrifying visions of the Bardo and the shining kingdom of Shambhala. When we travel eastward from Egypt and the Nile, we climb high into the Himalayas, to the windswept plateaus of Tibet and the broad plains of northern India. Here, the landscape itself seems to blur the line between this world and another. Peaks disappear into clouds, rivers vanish into caves, and monks chant in stone monasteries perched on cliffsides. It is in this mysterious setting that two of humanity's most fascinating afterlife visions emerge: the Bardo and Shambhala. The Bardo belongs to Tibetan Buddhism, a teaching about what happens in the 49 days between death and rebirth. It is a landscape of visions, sometimes radiant, sometimes terrifying, that reflects the mind of the soul itself. Shambhala, by contrast, is not an afterlife, but a hidden kingdom of wisdom, a spiritual land said to exist somewhere beyond mountains and snow, waiting for the right age to be revealed. Together, they offer us a picture of life, death, and rebirth that is unlike any we have seen so far. Not just a descent into shadow, but a cycle of consciousness unfolding like a dream. The word Bardo means literally between two. It is the space between death and new birth, neither the world of the living nor yet the world of the next life. In Tibetan Buddhism, death is not the end, but a transition, and the Bardo is the bridge. According to the Bardo Thodol, often called the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this period lasts up to 49 days. During that time, the consciousness of the departed wanders through visions that are both wondrous and frightening. What makes the Bardo so unique is this: it is not an external place in the way that Hades or the Duat were imagined. Instead, it is described as a realm shaped by the mind itself. The dead encounter deities, lights, and terrors, but all are reflections of their own karma, their past deeds, and the deep currents of their mind. In this way, the Bardo is both real and dreamlike. It is as though one wakes from life into a lucid dream, where everything seen is at once external and internal. The texts describe the Bardo in stages, unfolding like chapters in a book. The moment of death, Chikai Bardo. At the instant of dying, the soul glimpses the clear light, a radiant, pure awareness. For those trained in meditation, recognizing this light leads to immediate liberation, freedom from the cycle of rebirth. But most souls, unprepared, do not recognize it. They turn away, falling into confusion. The Bardo of the peaceful deities, Chonyid Bardo. After the first stage, the soul encounters peaceful gods and Buddhas. Brilliant lights of different colors shine forth, each representing a realm of existence. Gods, humans, animals, hungry ghosts, and hell beings. The correct path is always the most dazzling light, but many souls shy away, frightened, and instead drift toward the dimmer lights that lead back into lower realms of rebirth. The Bardo of the wrathful deities. If the soul does not recognize the peaceful visions, terrifying images appear. Wrathful deities with flaming hair, fangs, and weapons. They roar, chase, and frighten. Yet the teaching insists they are not monsters at all, but the same divine energies in fierce form, mirrors of the soul's own fears. If the traveler recognizes them as illusions, liberation is still possible. The Bardo of becoming, Sidpa Bardo. At last, the soul is drawn toward rebirth. Visions of parents appear, and the consciousness is compelled to enter a womb, beginning a new life. Unless enlightenment has been gained, the cycle repeats. These stages are not just guides for the dead, they are also teachings for the living, reminding us that our fears, attachments, and illusions create the reality we experience. Imagine yourself standing at the threshold of death. The world fades. Suddenly, a great brightness appears, limitless, clear, gentle, and vast. It is the clear light, shining like a sky without clouds, but it overwhelms you, too open, too vast. You turn away, then colors flash around you, blue, red, green, yellow, white. Each shines brighter than the sun. From the blue light comes the Buddha Vairocana, seated in peaceful radiance. He offers liberation, yet near him glows a softer light, a dim white beam of the human realm. It feels safer, less intense. Most souls, afraid of the brilliance, drift toward the dimmer path. Days pass, or what seems like days. Now the forms change. Fierce deities rise up, with flaming eyes and monstrous cries. They brandish weapons and rush upon you. Terror shakes your heart. But if you remember the teachings, you might whisper to yourself, "These are my own mind. They cannot harm me." And in that instant, their power fades. Finally, visions of men and women appear, pulling you into desire and aversion. A doorway opens, a womb, and unless you resist, you step through, forgetting, beginning again. The Bardo is a map of the human mind as much as of the afterlife. It shows us that what we fear most may be our own projections. It teaches that liberation comes not from escape, but from recognition. In Tibetan monasteries, monks read the Bardo Thodol aloud beside the dead, guiding them through each stage. Do not be afraid. Recognize the clear light. These visions are your own mind. The words are like a lantern, helping the traveler navigate the dreamlike path. Alongside the Bardo is another Tibetan vision, Shambhala. Unlike the Bardo, Shambhala is not a place of the dead, but a hidden land of the living. It is described as a pure realm, hidden behind mountains and snow, where wisdom and peace are preserved. According to legend, Shambhala is ruled by a line of enlightened kings. Its people live in harmony, practicing compassion and meditation. Some say it exists physically, somewhere beyond the Himalayas, hidden from ordinary sight. Others see it as a symbol of the enlightened mind, a paradise within. Shambhala is also tied to prophecy. Tibetan texts speak of a future time when the world will fall into chaos. Then, the king of Shambhala will lead an army of wisdom, defeating ignorance and ushering in a new golden age. Over centuries, travelers, explorers, and mystics sought Shambhala. Some imagined it in Central Asia, others in Mongolia, others deep in Tibet. Russian explorers in the 19th century wrote of mysterious lamas who spoke of the hidden kingdom. Western theosophists adopted the idea, linking it to Atlantis or hidden masters. But in Tibetan tradition, Shambhala is less about geography and more about inner practice. It is reached not by walking, but by awakening. To find Shambhala is to cultivate compassion, meditation, and wisdom, making one's own mind into a hidden kingdom of peace. Together, the Bardo and Shambhala show two sides of Tibetan thought. The Bardo teaches us how to face death and rebirth, how to recognize illusions and find liberation. Shambhala shows us how to live, how to preserve wisdom in times of darkness, and how to hold hope for a future of peace. One looks inward at the mind in its most fragile passage. The other looks outward to society in its highest harmony. Both remind us that the world we experience is shaped by the consciousness we bring to it. Like the Egyptian Duat, the Bardo is a journey through visions and tests. But unlike the Duat, these visions come not from external gods but from one's own mind. Like the Christian heaven or the Islamic paradise, Shambhala is a perfect land of harmony. But while those are usually placed after death, Shambhala exists in this world, hidden but attainable. Like the Greek Elysium or Norse Valhalla, Shambhala promises a golden future where harmony and strength prevail. Yet the Tibetan vision is uniquely psychological. Salvation comes not from external judgment, but from recognition of truth within oneself. The Tibetan Himalayas give us visions at once strange and profound. In the Bardo, we glimpse a realm where our own mind becomes the landscape, where fear and hope shape the path. In Shambhala, we hear of a hidden land of wisdom, reminding us that paradise may be closer than we think. Together, they teach that life and death, fear and peace, outer kingdom and inner mind are woven together. To awaken in the Bardo is to find liberation beyond rebirth. To awaken in Shambhala is to create a world of wisdom here and now. As we descend from the snowy peaks, our journey will carry us next into another part of Asia, the ancient lands of China and Japan, where the Yellow Springs, the Jade Emperor's courts, and the visions of Shinto spirits await. As we leave the towering Himalayas behind, our journey drifts eastward into the heart of China and across the seas to Japan. Here, two ancient traditions, both rich in myth, poetry, and philosophy, offer visions of the afterlife that are at once somber, shadowed, and deeply human. The Chinese spoke of the Yellow Springs, a realm beneath the earth where all the dead gathered. It was not a place of torment or joy, but of shadowy continuation, a mirror of earthly life stripped of sunlight. The Japanese, drawing from Shinto myth, described Yomi, the land of darkness, where the dead lingered in decay, sealed away from the living. Both traditions share a striking theme: the afterlife as separation. Unlike the paradises of Egypt or the heroic feasts of Valhalla, these underworlds remind us that death is not reward or punishment, but the simple, inevitable distance between the living and those who have passed on. The earliest Chinese texts, poems, chronicles, and inscriptions speak often of the Huangquan, the Yellow Springs. The name itself carries a sense of damp earth, dim light, and quiet stillness. It was imagined as lying deep beneath the soil, reached through graves and tombs. In contrast to the grand celestial realms of later Taoism and Buddhism, the Yellow Springs were egalitarian. Emperors and peasants alike descended there. It was not reserved for the wicked or the righteous. It was simply where the dead went. The classic of Mountains and Seas, an early Chinese text filled with myth, describes the Yellow Springs as a domain connected with rivers, caverns, and subterranean flows. To go to the Yellow Springs was a poetic way of saying to die. Though the Yellow Springs might seem bleak, Chinese culture did not leave its dead abandoned in shadow. Instead, the focus was on ancestral veneration. Families performed rituals, offered food, burned incense, and later paper money, believing these offerings sustained their loved ones in the other world. Tombs were stocked with goods, pottery, tools, even entire armies of clay in the case of the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. Death, therefore, was not final separation. The dead lived on in the Yellow Springs, but their well-being depended on the living. Neglecting one's ancestors risked their discomfort or their anger, maintaining them through ritual-preserved harmony between generations. This created a powerful bridge. The living sustained the dead, and the dead offered protection, guidance, and legitimacy in return. Over time, especially as Taoism and Buddhism blended with folk beliefs, the Yellow Springs evolved. The simple underground realm became imagined as a complex bureaucracy of the dead. Texts described 10 kings of hell, judges who weighed deeds and assigned punishments or rewards. The afterlife came to resemble the imperial court, with officials, clerks, documents, and seals. Just as one needed to navigate earthly bureaucracy, so too did one need to present petitions and bribes in the underworld. This transformation shows how flexible the Yellow Springs idea was. At first, a shadowy plane, later a moral and administrative system. Yet the underlying truth remained. Death was entry into another order, one as vast and inevitable as life itself. Close your eyes and imagine. You have died, and your family buries you with bowls of rice, incense, and small clay figures. The soil closes above you. Darkness spreads. You open your eyes and find yourself in a twilight plain. The earth glows faintly yellow, like dusk after rain. shapes of people move about. Farmers, soldiers, kings, all stripped of crowns and titles. They walk slowly, speaking in hushed tones. Some carry with them treasures, bronze vessels, silk robes, jade ornaments. Others hold nothing, their hands empty. You realize these are the offerings their families placed in their tombs. Though the place is dim, you feel the thread of incense smoke drifting from above, connecting you to the living world. Somewhere, your descendants light candles, and their prayers reach your ears like faint echoes. Crossing the sea, we arrive in Japan, where the ancient Shinto tradition offers a darker, more unsettling vision. Yomi, the land of the dead. Yomi is first described in Japan's oldest myths, the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki. It is the realm entered by Izanami, the mother goddess, after she dies giving birth to the fire god. Her husband, Izanagi, in grief, travels to Yomi to retrieve her. He finds Yomi a place of shadows and rot. At first, Izanami hides her decayed form, but when Izanagi lights a torch, he sees her body crawling with maggots, her face ruined. Horrified, he flees. Izanami, enraged by his rejection, chases him with armies of the dead. He barely escapes, blocking the entrance with a boulder. From that day forward, Yomi was forever sealed from the world of the living. This myth reveals the essence of Yomi, a place of decay, impurity, and no return. Unlike the Buddhist heavens or hells that later came to Japan, Yomi is not a place of justice or reward. It is simply where the dead remain, cut off from life, their beauty gone. In Shinto thought, death was not only sorrowful, but also polluting. Contact with corpses or Yomi brought defilement, which required purification rituals. Life and purity were sacred. Death and decay threatened them. Thus, Yomi was feared not because it tortured the wicked, but because it represented the loss of vitality and the permanent separation from the living. To go there was to enter silence and darkness, never to return. Later, Japanese stories imagine Yomi as a cavernous land, accessed through graves or mountains. Its air is heavy, its soil damp. Unlike Buddhist paradises filled with lotus ponds, Yomi offers no renewal. Its rivers are stagnant, its halls dim. In some tales, Yomi is guarded by the yellow river of the afterlife, across which souls must travel. Others describe it as a maze of caves, endless and shadowed. But in all, the sense of gloom is present. Yomi is not cruel, merely cold and cut off. Yet as in China, the Japanese did not sever ties with their dead. Through festivals like Obon, families welcomed ancestral spirits back for a brief visit each year, lighting lanterns to guide them home. This softened Yomi's finality. Though the dead dwelled in darkness, they could return for moments of reunion, eating offerings, listening to prayers, and then departing again. In this way, Japanese culture balanced the fear of Yomi with the tenderness of ancestral presence. Imagine yourself stepping through a cavern mouth. The air grows damp and cold. A river flows sluggishly at your feet. Across the water, dim figures shuffle, their faces pale, their clothes in tatters. One figure steps forward. At first, you think it is your mother. But as she draws close, you see her face is hollowed, her eyes shadowed, her skin fragile. She smiles faintly, but there is sorrow in it. You long to embrace her, but the river widens. A stone seals the gate behind you. The world of sunlight fades. You are in Yomi now, forever beyond the reach of day. Though Chinese and Japanese traditions are distinct, their afterworlds share themes. Both lie underground, beneath the soil. Both are shadowed, lacking light and vitality. Both emphasize the continuation of existence, not a final judgment. Both keep strong ties to the living, who sustain ancestors through ritual. And yet they differ. The Yellow Springs could be bureaucratic, managed like an empire, while Yomi remained raw, mythic, a land of rot and sorrow. Like the Greek Hades, both Yellow Springs and Yomi are shadow realms, neither heaven nor hell. Unlike the Egyptian duat, they lack strong paths to moral judgment or paradise. Unlike the Christian heaven, they do not offer reunion in joy, only quiet separation. Yet they carry the same human concern: how to care for the dead, how to bridge the gap of death with ritual and memory. The Chinese Yellow Springs and the Japanese Yomi remind us that not all afterlives are radiant. For many cultures, death was seen as a dim reflection of life, stripped of vitality. Yet within that dimness, meaning was found. In the care of ancestors, the rituals of remembrance, the brief return of spirits during festivals. In these traditions, the afterlife is not a reward, but a mirror of impermanence, a reminder that life is precious precisely because it fades. As we move onward, our path will take us into the Americas, where the Maya and Aztecs imagined underworlds of trials, 9 levels of darkness, and shining paradises for warriors and mothers. Their visions blend heroism and terror, giving us yet another angle on the great question: what awaits us when life ends? The world of the ancient Maya and Aztecs in Mesoamerica was filled with vibrant temples, vast cities, and intricate calendars that tracked the stars and the seasons. Their view of the afterlife was no less elaborate. Unlike the paradise of Egypt's Field of Reeds or the shining visions of Shambhala in Tibet, the afterworld of the Maya and Aztecs was often a place of trials, dangers, and descent. For the Maya, the underworld was called Xibalba, the place of fear. It was ruled by lords of death who delighted in trickery, games, and suffering. Yet it was also the setting of heroic myths, where the famed hero twins outwitted the lords of darkness. For the Aztecs, the afterlife was Mictlan, a vast realm of 9 layers beneath the earth. Most souls, regardless of status, traveled there after death, facing trial after trial before reaching the final resting place. Unlike some traditions that reserved paradise for the righteous, the Aztecs assigned different destinations based on the manner of death, not one's deeds. Together, these visions paint the afterlife not as a simple reward or punishment, but as a journey through challenge, a reflection of the struggles of earthly life and the eternal cycles of nature. Deep within the earth, beneath caves and rivers, the Maya imagined Xibalba. It was ruled by the lords of death, who bore names that revealed their cruel humor. 1 Death, 7 Death, Puss Master, Bone Staff, Flying Scab, Gathered Blood. Each lord embodied some disease, wound, or misfortune. To enter Xibalba was to step into a world of traps. The lords enjoyed mocking humans, tricking them into humiliation before finally killing them. It was a realm of tests, a cosmic game where survival depended not only on courage, but on cleverness. The most famous tale of Xibalba is told in the Popol Vuh, the sacred Maya text, where the hero twins, Hunahpu and Spalanque, descend into the underworld to avenge their father. The lords of Xibalba devised many houses of challenge, each designed to defeat the unprepared. The Dark House, total blackness, where sight was stripped away. The Cold House, freezing winds and frost that bit into the bones. The Jaguar House, filled with snarling jaguars waiting to devour intruders. The Bat House, swarming with deadly bats, including the monstrous Camazots, the Death Bat. The Razor House, filled with blades that whirled and sliced. Most souls entering Xibalba had no chance of surviving these traps. But the hero twins, with wit and courage, tricked the lords at every turn. They pretended to die, only to resurrect themselves, proving that life and death were cycles, not ends. In the end, the twins defeated the lords of Xibalba, showing that the power of renewal, cleverness, and sacrifice was stronger than the grip of fear. Their story gave the Maya hope that death could be faced with courage and even outwitted. To the Maya, caves and cenotes, deep natural wells, were sacred entrances to Xibalba. Priests descended into them for rituals, believing they touched the underworld. But the underworld was not entirely negative. It was also a source of fertility. From the dark soil came maize, the sacred crop. Life and death were 2 sides of the same cycle. Thus, While Xibalba was a land of fear, it was also a necessary stage in the endless rhythm of death and rebirth. For the Aztecs, the great underworld was Mictlan. It lay deep beneath the earth, and most people, no matter their rank or virtue, traveled there after death. The Aztec vision of the afterlife was unique. One's fate was not determined by morality, but by the manner of death. Warriors who died in battle, or women who died in childbirth, went to the House of the Sun, where they accompanied the sun god Tonatiuh across the sky. Those who drowned or died by water went to Tlalocan, a paradise ruled by the rain god Tlaloc, filled with flowers and eternal spring. Infants went to a special place of comfort, nourished by a great tree's milk until they could be reborn. But the majority of souls, those who died ordinary deaths, descended into Mictlan. Mictlan was ruled by Mictlantecuhtli, the skeletal lord of the dead, and his wife Mictecacihuatl. Their realm was not one of torment, but of endurance. To reach final rest, a soul had to pass through 9 layers, each with its own trial. Crossing the river of Apanahuaya with the help of a dog, often a red or yellow Xoloitzcuintli, buried with the dead to guide them. The hill of obsidian knives, sharp blades that cut at the traveler. The wind of knives, freezing gales filled with blades. The mountain collapsing on itself. Hills that crash together, threatening to crush the soul. The obsidian serpent, a deadly serpent barring the path. The place where flags wave, confusing winds that disoriented the traveler. The arrow place, where unseen hands shot arrows from darkness. The beast of obsidian, monstrous creatures that devoured the careless. The place of still darkness, final silence, where the soul at last found rest. This journey could take 4 years. Offerings placed in the tomb, food, tools, even dogs, helped the soul survive. Without them, the way was far harder. Like the Maya, the Aztecs saw death as a transition requiring support from the living. Funerary rites, offerings, and sacrifices ensured the soul's passage. Dogs were especially sacred as guides, their loyalty carrying over into the afterlife. During the festival that later became Dia de los Muertos, families honored the dead with food, flowers, and candles, inviting them back for a visit. The boundary between Mictlan and the world of the living grew thin, and joy replaced fear. Picture yourself entering Mictlan. A river stretches before you, black and cold. On its banks waits a sleek dog with bright eyes. It wades ahead, showing the path, while knives of obsidian glint beneath the water. Climbing out, you face winds sharp as blades, mountains that grind together, serpents with jaws wide as caves. You stumble, weary, but continue. Years pass, or what feels like years. At last, the air grows still. Darkness settles, not cruel but quiet. A skeletal figure greets you, Mictlantecuhtli, Lord of the Dead. He does not strike, only nods. You kneel and the silence wraps around you. The long journey is done. Though distinct, Xibalba and Mictlan share echoes. Both are underground realms, accessed through caves, rivers, or graves. Both emphasize trials and endurance rather than judgment of morality. Both highlight the role of ritual and offerings, linking the living to the dead. Both mix terror with meaning, showing that death is frightening but also part of the natural cycle. Yet their tone differs. Xibalba is playful, yet cruel, full of trickery and tests of wit. Mictlan is solemn, steady, a slow march through obstacles toward rest. Like the Greek underworld, these realms welcomed nearly all souls, not only the wicked. Like the Egyptian Duat, they demanded knowledge and guidance for safe passage. Like the Norse hell, they were shadowy but not wholly evil. Unlike the Christian heaven and hell, they did not divide souls by sin or virtue, but by fate and the nature of death. The Maya and Aztec visions of Xibalba and Mictlan remind us that life and death are bound by struggle, endurance, and renewal. Death was not the end, but a journey, one as perilous and meaningful as life itself. Through myths like the Hero Twins and rituals like Dia de los Muertos, These cultures transformed fear into story and loss into connection. The dead were not gone, they were traveling, and the living could still reach them with prayers, food, and memory. As we continue, our path will turn southward into the Andes of Inca Peru, where mountains touch the sky and ancestors lived not in shadow, but in the peaks themselves, watching over their descendants in a world where death was never truly separation. High in the Andes, where the air thins and mountains pierce the clouds, the Inca civilization rose with a vision of the cosmos unlike any other. To the Inca, the world was not flat, nor was it divided merely into heaven above and earth below. Instead, existence unfolded in three great realms, each linked, each alive with spirits and powers. Hanan Pacha, the upper world of the gods, the sun, the moon, and celestial beings. Cape Pacha, the world of the living, the surface where humans walked, farmed, and built their stone cities. Uhu Pacha, the inner or lower world, hidden beneath the ground, home to the dead, to seeds, to unborn children, and to powerful spirits. Uhu Pacha, the inner world, was not simply a place of punishment or despair. It was a realm of mystery and potential, the dark soil where maize sprouted, the womb of the earth itself. To the Inca, death was not departure, but return, a re-entry into the cycles of nature and into the company of one's ancestors. Unlike the sharp good and evil dualism of some traditions, the Inca cosmos was about balance. Hanan Pacha, Cape Pacha, and Uku Pacha were not enemies, but parts of a whole, bound together by reciprocity, or aini. Farmers planting maize saw the seeds descend into Uku Pacha before bursting upward again into Cape Pacha, nourished by the blessings of Hanan Pacha. Similarly, humans who died sank into Uku Pacha, but their spirits could rise as guardians, ancestors who continued to shape life on Earth. This interconnectedness shaped rituals, festivals, and even city planning. Cusco, the Inca capital, was laid out in the shape of a puma, a sacred animal symbolizing Cape Pacha. The condor represented Hanan Pacha, soaring in the heavens, while the serpent embodied Uku Pacha, twisting through the underworld and the hidden depths. When an Inca died, it was not considered an ending. The body was carefully prepared, often mummified, and placed in tombs, caves, or chulpas, stone towers. These were not merely graves, but doorways into Uku Pacha. Mummies were not abandoned, they were cared for as if alive. Families visited them, brought them food, dressed them in fine clothing, and consulted them for guidance. Important ancestors were carried in festivals, seated at feasts, even given coca leaves and chicha, maize beer. This practice reflected the belief that ancestors remained active participants in the lives of the living. Uku Pacha was not sealed off. It was a realm that could be reached, touched, and honored through ritual. At the heart of Inca cosmology stood Pachamama, the Earth Mother, who embodied Uku Pacha's power of fertility and sustenance. She received offerings of coca leaves, chicha, and llama fat buried in the soil, gifts in exchange for her blessings. Pachamama was not only generous, but also demanding. If neglected or offended, she could withhold her bounty, sending droughts, poor harvests, or earthquakes. In this way, Uku Pacha was both nurturing and dangerous, just as the soil gives life, but can also swallow life in landslides or volcanic eruptions. The Inca made frequent use of caves and springs as sacred sites. Close your eyes and imagine. You descend into a cool Andean cave, torchlight flickering against stone walls. The air smells of damp earth. Ahead, mummies wrapped in fine textiles sit in niches, their faces calm, their presence heavy. You kneel, placing coca leaves at their feet. You sense the soil around you pulsing with unseen life, seeds waiting to sprout, ancestors whispering, rivers flowing deep underground. Far above, the condor circles the sky. Beneath you, the serpent coils unseen. You realize you are not standing in a place of death, but in a chamber of return, renewal, and eternal presence. The Inca Uku Pacha shows us an underworld that is not about fear, but about belonging. To the Inca, the dead were never gone. They lived on in mummies, mountains, and soil. They spoke through rituals and offerings. They nurtured crops and guided communities. Uku Pacha was the inner thread of existence, binding past and present, the womb of both ancestors and harvests. In honoring it, the Inca found a way to live in balance with their world, seeing death not as exile, but as homecoming. As we journey further, we will cross the seas once more, to the vast Pacific, where Polynesian navigators carried their traditions across islands, and where the afterlife was envisioned not in soil or shadow, but on distant, shining shores, where spirits sailed forever on waves of eternity. Far out in the Pacific, scattered across thousands of islands, the Polynesian peoples built one of the greatest seafaring cultures in human history. Long before compasses or written maps, they read the stars, the winds, and the currents, steering double-hulled canoes across vast stretches of ocean. Their voyages were not only about reaching new islands, but about understanding existence itself. For the Polynesians, the sea was not just a highway of exploration, it was also the bridge between life and death. Where other cultures imagined tunnels, caves, or underworlds beneath the earth, the Polynesians envisioned the journey of the soul as a voyage across the ocean. Death was a departure, a setting out on a final voyage toward distant, unseen lands where ancestors dwelled. In many Polynesian traditions, the dead did not vanish, but traveled across the sea to join the spirits of their ancestors. The soul was imagined like a voyager, boarding a canoe and paddling toward the horizon, where the living world faded and the spirit world began. Sometimes the journey was guided by gods or ancestral spirits. In other stories, the soul found its own way, following paths traced by stars and waves. Just as navigators trusted their knowledge to cross the ocean, the dead trusted ritual, song, and memory to reach the world beyond. In Hawaiian belief, there were sacred places along the coasts known as Lena Akauhane, leaping places of souls. These were high cliffs where spirits were thought to depart from the world of the living, leaping into the next. One such place is at Kaina Point on Oahu. There, the spirits of the dead gathered before their final leap. If a soul hesitated or clung to life, guardians might drive it forward. Once across, it joined the ancestral realm, a land of peace and reunion. This belief tied the geography of the islands to the spiritual map of the afterlife. The cliffs and shores were not just physical features but thresholds, doorways between life and death. In Samoan tradition, the afterlife lay in Pulotu, a paradise across the sea ruled by the goddess Saveasi'uleo. Spirits traveled westward, the direction of the setting sun, crossing the waters to reach this realm. Pulotu was not a land of punishment, but a place of rest and continuation. Chiefs and commoners alike could reach it, though high-ranking leaders might dwell in greater honor. The voyage to Pulotu echoed the voyages of the living, who set sail across dangerous seas to new islands. Just as navigators faced storms and currents, so too did souls endure the sea's challenges before reaching their final shore. Among the Maori of Aotearoa, the path of the dead led north to Cape Renga, Te Rerenga Wairua, the leaping place of spirits. There, at the tip of the North Island, a lone pohutukawa tree clings to the rocks. Spirits were said to climb down the tree's roots into the sea, then journey across the waters to Hawaiki, the ancestral homeland. Hawaiki was both the place from which the Polynesians had come in life and the place to which they returned in death. Thus, the Maori vision of the afterlife bound together myth and migration. The journey of the dead mirrored the journey of their ancestors, who first voyaged across the Pacific, uniting past and present. In Tahitian belief, souls traveled along the Avenue of the Dead, paths leading to the western horizon. The direction of the setting sun symbolized departure. Along these paths, Rituals guided the spirit, ensuring it would not wander or lose its way. Priests and family members played crucial roles. Through chants, offerings, and ceremonies, they sent the soul safely on its voyage. Without these rituals, the spirit might linger restlessly, haunting the living. To Polynesians, the sea was both friend and foe. It gave fish, linked islands, and carried voyagers to new lands. But it could also take lives with storms, waves, and hunger. This duality carried into the afterlife. The soul's voyage across the ocean was not always easy. Some stories spoke of storms that tested the dead, or of sea spirits that tried to drag them down. Yet the soul that endured found safe harbor in the lands beyond. The destination of the dead was often imagined as an island or archipelago far beyond the horizon. These islands were not barren but lush and beautiful, filled with food, shade, and companionship. There the ancestors dwelled, watching over the living. For Polynesians, connection to ancestors was vital. Genealogies were memorized across dozens of generations, linking each person to their lineage. In the afterlife, the dead rejoined this chain, becoming part of the great canoe of their people's history. Funeral rituals helped prepare the soul for its voyage. Bodies were sometimes wrapped in tapa cloth and buried, or in some traditions, bones were later exhumed, cleaned, and placed in sacred sites. The bones carried mana, spiritual power, and by caring for them, the living maintained ties with the dead. Chants and prayers called upon gods and ancestors to guide the spirit. Offerings ensured it had strength for the journey. In some places, priests acted as navigators for the soul, reciting the spiritual maps of the ocean to direct it on its way. Close your eyes and imagine. You stand at the edge of a cliff, waves pounding below. The sun sets, painting the horizon in red and gold. A wind rises, carrying with it voices of ancestors. You step forward, not in body, but in spirit. Before you lies a great canoe, waiting. You climb aboard. The sail catches the wind, and the canoe glides toward the glowing horizon. Behind you, the island fades. Ahead, a new land shimmers, green, radiant, filled with the laughter of those who came before. This is not an ending. It is a voyage home. The Polynesian vision differs from the earthbound underworlds we have seen. Unlike the Greek Hades or Maya Xibalba, the Polynesian afterlife is not underground, but across the sea. Unlike the Aztec Mictlan, there are few trials of torment. The challenge is the voyage itself. Like the Egyptian field of reeds, the destination is often a land of beauty and abundance. Like the Inca Uku Pacha, ancestors remain close, guiding and protecting the living. What unites these traditions is the sense that death is a journey, a movement from one world to another, requiring guidance, courage, and ritual. Why the sea? Why did Polynesians imagine the afterlife as a voyage across the sea? Perhaps because the sea was the central fact of their lives. Every migration, every discovery, every connection depended on water. The sea was both mystery and memory. Beyond the horizon lay unknown lands, just as beyond death lay the lands of the ancestors. To imagine the afterlife as a voyage was natural, for it mirrored their deepest experiences. The Polynesian vision of the afterlife shows us a world where death is not descent, but departure. The soul becomes a voyager, guided by chants, cliffs, and stars, setting sail to rejoin the ancestors. It is a vision full of motion, connection, and continuity. Just as the Polynesians crossed the Pacific to settle new islands, so too did they believe the soul crossed into unseen lands, never alone, always part of a lineage stretching across generations and horizons. With this, we reach the end of our great survey of underworlds and afterlives. From Babylonian rivers to Greek shadows, Egyptian fields to Polynesian seas, each culture shaped its own vision, but all sought to answer the same question: what happens when we die? As we close, let us enter the final part of our journey, a gentle wind-down reflection, drawing together the threads of these myths into a quiet meditation for rest. And now, dear traveler, we have reached the quiet edge of our journey. We have walked through legends of glowing suns beneath the ground, of lost kingdoms, of whispering tunnels, and of guardians who stand at unseen gates. We have listened to explorers, mystics, and storytellers from every corner of the world, each offering a piece of the riddle called the Hollow Earth. Some of these tales shimmer like firelight, bright, enchanting, and impossible to prove. Others sound like echoes from a dream, shaped more by imagination than by rock or soil. And yet, even when science explains the Earth as solid and layered, the stories continue to flow. Why? Because within us, there is always the longing for hidden doors, for places uncharted, for the hope that just beyond what we can measure, there might be wonders waiting. Perhaps that is the true heart of the Hollow Earth myths. Not that there is a second sun glowing in the dark, but that we humans never stop searching. We dig, we explore, we imagine, and in our imagining, we find a kind of treasure, one that feeds our sense of mystery, our sense of possibility. So as you drift toward rest, let these thoughts settle gently, that the earth beneath your feet holds not only stone and fire, but also the dreams of countless generations, dreams of inner kingdoms, of radiant light, of beings both wise and strange. The stories remind us that the world is never fully mapped, never fully explained. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let the echoes of these ancient tales carry you into sleep. The mystery continues, and perhaps, in dreams, you might walk those hidden paths yourself.